This video is sponsored by Card Kingdom. If you click on the link in the description below, it'll take you to their store and they'll know I sent you there. Hello everyone, I'm Nitsahone, and it is Friday, so that means it's time for another MTG Top 10. In today's video, I'm going to be looking at snow. It seems like it's an apt time to do this, as temperatures are dropping rapidly in the northern hemisphere, and some of us have already had our first snow of the season. I have wanted to do this one for a long time, but there weren't enough successful snow cards to make that worthwhile. But Modern Horizons was released this year, and it brought some powerful snow cards with it that are already seeing play in multiple formats. So, what is snow in Magic? Well, it's a super type, one that was originally introduced in Ice Age, and also showed up in subsequent sets like Alliances, Cold Snap, and of course Modern Horizons. Basically, Ice Age block takes place during, well, an Ice Age on Dominaria, and as a result there are lots of cards with the super type. Snow doesn't have any inherent meaning as a super type, but there are lots of cards that are snow payoffs that work quite well with them. To be eligible for this list, a card had to either have the snow super type or be a snow payoff. I decided not to let snow-covered basic lands be eligible for this list so that we can talk about some more interesting snow cards. Alright, before we get started, a quick reminder on how I score cards in these videos. A Pro Tour or Mythic Championship top 8 as well as a Legacy or Vintage Championship top 8 are worth 2 points, and a Grand Prix top 8 is worth 1 point. Alright, let's look at number 10, which is Phyrexian Ironfoot. The Ironfoot gives you a very efficient 3 mana 3/4, but it does come with the downside of not untapping. However, if you have some snow mana lying around, you can untap him. So what's snow mana exactly? Well, it's any mana that is produced by a snow permanent, whether a land or something else. Overall, the Ironfoot may not look super impressive by our standards today, but it was a card that just happened to be really good in the standard it was a part of. There were a lot of good 3/3s in the format, and the Ironfoot's main goal in the decks it was played in was to slow down your opponent's attacks on the ground while you try to wait out aggressive opponents. It was also immune to one of the most played cards in the entire format, Shriekmaw. It both couldn't be targeted by the Shriekmaw's Enter the Battlefield trigger and could easily block it. It was played in standard reanimation decks for exactly this purpose. These decks went out of their way to run snow lands just to support a couple of cards, and one of them was the Ironfoot. The Ironfoot got all of his points in standard reanimator decks back in 2007, and I don't think it's going to be getting any more points anytime soon. At number 9, it is Skred, which is a powerful snow payoff. It is actually exactly tied with Phyrexian Ironfoot. They both have a single Pro Tour top 8 and 4 Grand Prix top 8s, so in a way, number 9 and number 10 are really 9A and 9B. Anyway, more often than not, Skred is an incredibly efficient removal spell. Decks that run it are usually loaded up with snow lands, not to mention other types of snow permanents, so Skred is often doing 4+ damage for a single red mana, which is pretty impressive. In Standard, it was played in the snow-centric snow ramp deck, but it was also played in mono-red aggro decks, which just went ahead and played a bunch of snow-covered mountains to have access to this powerful spell. Aggro decks love spending only a tiny bit of mana to get blockers out of the way, because they can usually then add to the board in the same turn instead of using their mana just for removal. It also has a single point in Modern in Skred Red, a mono-red control deck which runs a bunch of snow-covered mountains to get the most out of Skred. While its only top 8 in Modern came back in 2016, Skred Red always seems to be on the fringes of Modern, and it could manage some more points in the deck in the future. At number 8, I have Into the North, which is basically a snow version of Rampant Growth. It's one generic and a green for a ramp spell that lets you get a snow land. In a lot of ways, though, Into the North is actually better than Rampant Growth. Why? Because it allows you to search up any snowland, not just the basic ones, and there's some nice non-basic snowlands out there, like the Cycle of Snow dual lands, which can produce 2 different colors of mana. That's some pretty good fixing. This also includes utility lands like Scrying Sheets, as well as some other cards we're going to see further up this list. In Standard, it was one of the key cards for the Snow ramp deck, and it also has 2 points in Legacy, where it's been used in a combo deck that is built around one snow land in particular, one we will talk about further up this list. At number 7, it is Orin Viper. The Viper is the kind of creature that mid-range and control strategies love because it can chip away for damage while drawing you cards. The Viper makes things difficult for your opponent too, because even if they have a blocker, they might have to trade something pretty awesome to kill the Viper, since he has pseudo Death Touch. So, the Viper always puts people in a situation where they have to decide whether they want to give you card advantage or trade for the Viper, and that choice can be painful. Decks that run the Viper can oftentimes make it so that it isn't a choice anyway by getting a blocker out of the way one way or another and just drawing cards. The Viper picked up all 6 of its points at Worlds in 2007 in 3 rock decks. One of these ran Doron the Siege Tower, something that it's pretty nasty to pair with the Viper. At number 6, it is Mouth of Ronan, one of the non-basic snow lands I promised you would see as we moved further up this list. Just a quick aside, but the symbols on this card really bother me. Let me explain. Because Mouth of Ronan is a snow permanent, any mana it produces is considered snow mana. This is useful for a few snow cards, including Mouth of Ronan itself, which asks you for 4 generic and 1 snow mana to use it. However, as you can see, when the Mouth taps for mana, it doesn't use the same symbol as the cost required for the activated ability. This has definitely confused countless people who didn't realize that the Mouth itself can produce snow mana. This is true about all snow mana permanents that produce mana, but most of them don't also have an activated ability that costs snow mana, and I think that's what makes this card kind of problematic. I have a feeling that if they did it again today, snow permanents that produce colorless mana would do it with a snow symbol to avoid this type of confusion. Anyhow, let's talk about the actual card now. Mouth of Ronan is a pretty powerful utility land since it can function as a removal spell. While it isn't the most efficient removal around, the fact that it can produce mana until you need it to be a removal spell is pretty great. It also doesn't hurt that, as a snow land, you can tutor it up with Into the North whenever you want. A tutorable removal spell is no joke, even if it is a bit inefficient. Mouth of Ronan was played alongside Phyrexian Ironfoot and Standard Animator, in addition to being played in snow ramp decks. At number 5, it is Cold Steel Heart, a snow mana rock, and a flexible one at that since it lets you name the color of the mana it produces. This is another snow permanent, by the way, so the mana it produces is also considered snow mana. Anyhow, all of Cold Steel Heart's points came in the Standard of 2008, where it was played in Revelark decks. The fact it was snow didn't matter at all in those decks, they were just interested in playing a mana rock that could get them into their more powerful spells more quickly. Worth noting too that Cold Steel Heart is played a lot in EDH, like most good mana rocks. At number 4, it is Dead of Winter, the first of 2 snow cards from Modern Horizons to make this list. Modern Horizons brought a lot of new tools for snow decks to the party. Since the set came out, 4 of its snow cards have at least 1 point already, and Dead of Winter gives you a really good reason to jam a bunch of snow permanents into your deck. First, it gives you a hyper-efficient removal spell that scales as the game goes on, and is capable of killing just about anything, even indestructible and hexproof creatures. Second, it doesn't affect snow creatures, so that incentivizes you to play snow creatures in your deck to make this one-sided. Fittingly, all of Dead of Winter's points so far have come in Modern, where it has seen a considerable amount of play in the sideboards of Urza decks. These decks are running snow-covered lands in them already for the number 3 card on this list that we're about to talk about, so running Dead of Winter in the sideboard seems like a good call since it can just decimate creature-based decks. So far, it hasn't seen play anywhere but Urza's sideboards, but the card has only been out a few months, and it already has 11 points, so I think there's a chance it finds some more success in the future, especially if we're going to see snow permanents come back in a standard legal set in the future. At number 3, it is Arkham's Astral Aid, the second and final card on the list from Modern Horizons. The Astral Aid looks like a pretty unassuming card. I mean, it draws a card and filters mana. Big deal, right? Well, yeah, it is actually a pretty big deal. Usually when we see cards like this, they look like Prophetic Prism, which is the same card, except it costs twice as much to cast. So, paying 1 for a card that replaces itself and can filter mana isn't so bad. This is especially true in decks that can get extra value out of artifacts, like the decks in Modern built around Urza, Lord High Artificer. Those decks look to go off with Thopter Foundry and make a ton of Thopters. The Astral Aid gives you a source of mana after Urza comes down, and helps you dig into your library for the pieces that you need, while also helping out other cards in the deck that have artifact synergy. Urza decks are at the top of the pile in Modern right now, and Astral Aid is playing a much bigger role in that than you might think. It's going to continue to be a good deck there, barring bannings, and it is very possible that this time next year, Arkham's Astral Aid is the number 1 snow card in the history of the game. Worth noting too that the Astral Aid had to be banned in Pauper last month. In that format, it was even more problematic because with only commons being legal, there aren't very good sources of fixing, but the Astral Aid proved to be way too good of a source for it, with much of the field running it. At number 2, it is Borealis Druid, a snow mana elf. It's pretty rare that a 1-mana creature who can tap for mana doesn't see play in its standard format, because the ramp they provide is pretty incredible. Playing your 3-mana and 4-mana cards a turn before your opponent can is some serious business. Also, keep in mind, since this is a snow permanent, the colorless mana this produces is also snow mana. It picked up 11 of its 12 points in Standard, where it was played in tribal elf decks, and it has 1 point in Extended, also in an elf deck. Unfortunately for the Druid, it will likely never see play in non-rotating formats, which have access to considerably more powerful mana dorks. At number 1, it is Dark Depths. Earlier, when talking about Into the North, I alluded to combo decks built around a specific snowland, and this is the one I was talking about. Dark Depths would be pretty terrible if the only way you could get the avatar out of it was actually slowly removing those ice tokens. In fact, it was terrible for a few years, with people dismissing the card entirely. But Dark Depths is a type of card that ended up becoming significantly more powerful thanks to later printings. First, there was Vampire Hexmage, which allowed you to remove all the tokens at once, giving you a 20/20 Merit Lage on turn 3 in some cases. This combo was first utilized and extended in 2009, and was successful enough that Dark Depths was preemptively banned out of Modern, and it remains on the ban list today. Legacy is really where Dark Depths has gone on to shine. This is because, in addition to the Hexmage, you can also use Thespian Stage to combo off quickly. In Legacy, there are 2 different decks that run this as a win condition. One of them, simply called Dark Depths, is more focused on pulling off the combo. The other is called Lands, and is a deck that is loaded up with a variety of utility lands and land tutors, and one of the ways it can win is the Thespian Stage and Dark Depths combo. Dark Depths is one of the best ways to win in all of Legacy, and as a result, it's going to continue to put up points. That said, at this point, it does seem inevitable that Arkham's Astral Aid will take over this spot over the next year or so, but we'll have to see. Well, that does it for this edition of MTG Top 10. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and share it so that others can enjoy it too. If you want to make sure you catch future episodes of MTG Top 10, don't forget to subscribe, and if you want to see the over 220 MTG Top 10s I've already done, you should see the playlist on your screen now. Thanks for watching.